All right, we're going to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Floyd, Cost, Bub, Marmee, and Rath is sitting in for Frazier. First item on the agenda is a request for resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the City of Newark to pay bills on behalf of the Income Tax Department pursuant to Section 5705.41D, then and now certification and declaring an emergency.
Hello. I just need to pay our bill for our software provider.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Floyd. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for resolution authorizing and directing the auditor of the City of Newark to pay bills on behalf of the Division of Police pursuant to Section 5705.41D, then and now certification and declaring an emergency.
Hello. This is for the software with the working with the county for dispatch and our record software that we purchased last year that you guys approved. This is the first year that we got it, so we didn't know what our prices would be. Therefore, it was a then and now rather than like we normally do. Tim Hickman sets up all recurring subscriptions before the end of the year and have them ready to go. This year, we didn't have the opportunity to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Floyd, second by Bub. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Frazier is here now, so just for the record. Next item on the agenda is a resolution, or excuse me, not a resolution, is a request for an appropriation in the amount of $500 for damage of claims.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. 2 weeks ago, we talked about our command vehicle in the fire division. Was involved in a non-injury auto accident. To get that truck back in service, Division of Fire paid the monies. You were kind enough to reappropriate the actual expense of it. This piece here is the deductible that we've paid up front as well.
Motion.
Motion by Floyd, second by Cost. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you,
The
Mr.
motion
Chair.
passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a request for resolution designating allocating of hotel lodging excise tax revenue generated pursuant to Chapter 892 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Newark, Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the resolution states, we're just trying to allocate our funds from the bed tax money. For this year, as you can see on the bottom of the first page of your legislation, there is a chart. And on the chart, it's showing where the committee, the bed tax committee, which consists of Mayor Hall, Director Rhodes, myself, we've added Dan Motor from the Licking County Convention and Visitors Bureau to the group. And Carol Floyd is on that bed tax committee, and also Doug Marmee. You'll see there are 5 main areas, or organizations, I should say, that we'd like to distribute funds to. Whitefield, Canal Market, NASA Soccer, Reese Ice Arena, and Newark Catholic High School. The first 4 we're proposing that we distribute funds over the next 5 years, and Newark Catholic over the next 2 years. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Make a motion. I'll second.
Motion by Bub, second by Frazier.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mrs. Floyd.
I just want to say that the last section says balance of distribution recommended by committee each year, which we will do later. I mean, there are usually some additional funds, and we've given money to Midland and the Works, and some other groups who asked for it, and so we'll do that in another month or so.
Yes, Mr. Rath.
I was just wondering what happens to the additional $25,000 in 2018, 19, and 20 that we are not using to work at?
I'm sure it's going to fall under the committee review.
And then why do we stop?
Mayor, would you like to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what was about. Maybe if you formulated number of students, it'd be pretty equivalent to Newark High versus Newark Catholic, the number of students potentially.
I can respond to that, actually, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Newark Catholic's need is more immediate. Instead of spreading it over 5 years, we asked if it'd be in the next 2 years. So therefore, if we would have spread it over 5 years, it probably would have been the same amount, but over a 5-year period. But the need is more urgent in the next 2 years, so they've asked for it up front.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Frazier.
And what is it used for?
He's just normal.
Yeah, hold on just a minute.
Yeah, I have a similar question. Do we know what these organizations we use these funds for? Have we already been in communication with them?
They've submitted letters, and within the letters there had requests for what they'd like to use the funds for. For example, Newark Catholic, for example, they have in need of new football bleachers. Their bleachers were condemned, and so all the bleachers have been taken down at their field. So there's tremendous need there. Basketball bleachers, they had to remove the first row of bleachers in the basketball area because that was I believe, a safety code violation. The bleachers were too close to the area where the players were playing. Baseball netting, safety concerns, trying to protect people from outside the baseball area from being hit. If you've ever been to Newark Catholic on a night when there's a baseball game and a track meet, and things get pretty hectic and pretty close together over there. So track resurfacing is another. There are tracks in need of being resurfaced. It's that special rubber surface that they're using nowadays. And another item is a gym floor replacement. They have sanded that gym floor down over so many years that there's nothing left to sand down. So they've got a total a huge need. I think I'm seeing probably almost $370,000 worth of need requests there. Ice Arena, they're in need of a new chiller. And I believe that came in about $100,000 that they need to generate for that. NASA Soccer, they're looking to do some improvements so they can bring additional people and have additional tournaments where they bring, again, people staying overnight, spending money in our restaurants and our hotels. Canal Market, I think you know the story there. We're just getting off and running on May 27th, and it's a huge draw to our Newark area. I believe 5 states, Mayor, is that correct? People from 5 states have expressed an interest in what's going on down here at Canal Market in downtown Newark. So there's a few examples right there for you.
I might just add, we tend to try to give the organizations that might provide overnight stays at hotels to refuel the pot. So from the school's perspective, they bring in basketball tournaments, soccer tournaments sometimes. From each of these dynamics, they bring in events that provide hotel nights. Again, the hotel tax is collected on. So.
Mr. Frazier.
Don Edwards Park, is this something that is going away now, or is that somewhere else in the budget? Is that what we used this for before, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, it was.
It's paid for.
Yeah, it's
Paid
paid
for.
for.
Yeah,
We're done with it.
It's paid off.
Paid it off.
Excellent.
Any additional? Yes.
Mr. Chair, how much does it generate annually? Here's the allocation,
Yeah.
so how much does it generate for the whole fund?
The budget was submitted for $180,000, Jeremy, and that's what council appropriated back in December. If you add these up, we got about $140,000 going toward those 5 organizations. So that left a balance of another $40,000 discretionary as other requests come in.
Is there timelines when Carol mentioned like the Works and the Midland and places like that? Is there a timeline when those requests, or they just come in and the committee meets to decide?
Mayor, could you help me with that?
This is a replacement piece of legislation for 5 years. So that takes effect, and then we'll meet probably in the next few weeks here again and do that. We've got the letters from the Works and from the Midland Theater, and all intent is to give them money. So that it will happen. It's just probably be another piece of legislation coming before you.
Any additional questions?
Or let me clarify that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It really won't be a piece of legislation, it will be an approval from council. The committee will recommend and then council will vote on it. Clarify that,
Any additional questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we stand adjourned. Next up is personnel.
Okay, it's 5:43. We'll call this Personnel Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Ryan Bubb, Doug Marmee, Curtis Johnson, Alex Roletta, and Dee Hall. Purpose of tonight's legislation is to discuss Ordinance 16-13. It's amending the position classification, pay range, and department authorization tables of the Department of Safety, Division of Police by creating the classification of Information Technology Specialist and setting the compensation therefore and abolishing one police officer position. Safety Director Bill Spurgeon, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. The Division of Police has had a historical mismatch in how there's a function, IT, that we do and who does it. It's worked well, but in layman's terms, we've had a police officer performing our IT needs. I said something to Chief Connell's predecessor, and when Barry first came on board, that if we ever had an opportunity to address it, I'd like to, and that's what we'd like to do tonight. We'd actually like to have a job description that matches what they're doing, which is the IT. The details of which I've asked Chief Connell to stick around, and he can walk you through it should you have questions.
Thank you. Before we have any questions, was there anything you'd like to say, Chief?
No.
Okay.
Questions?
Okay. Does anyone from the committee have any questions, comments, concerns?
Just like to hear more about it.
Let me give you a little bit of a historical perspective. Bob Carson started on the department about a year after me, so it'd be in 1991. When we had, at that time, I think in 92, we got one computer in the department. So, yes, I'm that old. So, as time went, and that actually was donated by Bob and his family's company. So, as time progressed, we've went from very few computers and IT needs in the department to extensive needs. So as time, this position has changed. Well, Bob actually took over as a police officer and handled these duties for the last couple decades. So what we're looking at now is Bob retired recently, and he did a great job. What we found with him, we started studying about a year ago all the things that he did. We knew he was going to be leaving within the next year or so, so we started studying everything that he did. And what we found, and I kind of feel bad as a command officer in the department, is that Bob was giving us about 60 hours worth of work every week for 40 hours pay. He was doing a lot of things off duty and things like that. So what we knew we would have to do is get somebody who specialized in this and wasn't actually a sworn police officer. And I realize it looks like we're taking away safety forces from the city, but we're really not. For the last 2 decades, Bob has done this job and hasn't actually worked the street as a police officer. So we're just trying to align the duties better with what we actually need.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from this committee? Anyone from Mr. Marmee?
Is it going to be the same pay structure?
Comparison, Director Buskirk can answer. I think it's less, but I don't know to what degree less.
Okay.
It's similar to other IT positions in the city of Newark. We also did some research in Franklin and Licking County with the job markets there for an IT position. It's kind of a new area for us to be looking into.
Okay. Mr. Johnson?
Well, so we're truly not getting rid of a police officer that would be working in the safety area?
On paper we are. In reality, this position hasn't been in use for 20 years.
Because it doesn't sound good for us to
It does not. But
get
it's,
rid of a police
it's
officer.
just to let you know, we've also discussed this with the FOP to let them know in advance what we plan to do.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. I think Ms. Hall has a question. Had her hand
I
up
just
pretty
have
good.
a question. Would this be a possibility of an outside contract person, or is this somebody you just need absolutely every day?
We need absolutely every day. As I said, Bob Carson did about 60 hours worth of work a week for 40 hours pay. So we definitely need somebody in-house. The other part of this is we also need somebody in-house rather than contracting it, because they will be dealing with things that potentially could involve evidence, things like that, policy-making things. So it's a very involved job that we want to include directly in the police department. We don't think we could be served as well by outside contracting.
Mr. Chair.
Ready.
Chief, could you explain a little bit why it's necessary to abolish that one position on paper? As you may have alluded to that already, but
Yeah, it would be a shell game to not do that. I mean, we truly are taking one position and moving it to the other. We still have several positions that are still available, just they're not funded. So I'm comfortable with that margin. So it's a little truer to what we need.
all right, thank you.
I believe Mr. Johnson offered a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Marmee. Is there any further questions or comments? Mr. Rath?
You know, the 60 hours a week that he was working, what percentage of those hours were spent doing police officer work versus IT work?
I would say virtually none of it was police officer law enforcement. There would have been times that he would have helped with cases, extracting evidence and things, but none of that would change. So I would say a very, very small portion.
Mr. Frazier?
Is Boyd working in the police department, in the building, or?
Yes, same exact location. As of right now, we actually pulled another police officer off the street, Mark Dickman, to cover the duties after Bob retired. So that's why we'd like to move this as soon as we could. Because we are actually impacting the number of officers on the street currently.
Go ahead.
Just a follow-up question. You said that that person would be helping with casework when needed.
Yes.
How can they do that as a non-certified
Absolutely.
police officer?
Yeah, without being an officer, absolutely they can. We currently have an AFSCME employee that does property room work, so there's no requirement to be in the FOP or to be a sworn police officer to do this work. In fact, many departments farm this out to private companies.
What's the possibility, or have you looked into the possibility of finding a certified police officer who has a background, who has a specialty in law enforcement and IT that you could use and still have capabilities of putting them on the street in a backup situation or reserve situation?
That would be problematic. First of all, we would limit our pool to current police officers, where this allows us to reach out to everybody who would have the abilities and skills. Certifications, we're hoping to get more and more certifications. Obviously, IT is a moving target for us. And as I said, there's really no impact, and there would be no ability to put this person on the street if they were a sworn police officer. As I said, I have 60 hours worth of work that needs done a week, and I'll have somebody for 40 hours of that. So there's no way that I would say, oh, you're having a slow day, go ahead and hit the street for the day. So it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily mean a slow day. I meant more like an emergency situation. And I had a follow-up question. Where the heck did it go? Oh, if you add the IT position, is it absolutely necessary to eliminate the police officer position? Or could we just leave that unfilled until we have funds to fill it?
As I said, we already have positions that are still there that are vacant currently, so I'm comfortable with the margin. They're not funded now. So if funding would come available, I have several positions that I could fill on top.
Which answers my question.
I did, sir. It would serve no purpose to maintain that position.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
Mr. Bug, Chief, do you know off the top of your head how many we have vacant? You know, you said you're comfortable with the margin. If we were moving,
I can tell you that I think we were at 81 sworn in the, 2007 or 2008. I would have to think that most of those were at 68 right now. So I'd have to think that most of those are still available.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure.
And could I do a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Chief, so let me see if I heard this correctly. An officer was taken off the street to do this this job currently, and you can get him back on the street if you fill it with someone else?
Yes, well, we took Bob Carson off the street many years ago.
Right.
And then recently, when Bob retired, that took us down to 68 sworn officers on the books. We also pulled Mark Dickman off the road to cover things because we're still going through the transition with the county and everything. So we have a very high IT need, especially right now. So he was pulled off the street, which impacted one of our daylight teams. We're down to 5 officers on that team. So the sooner we can do this, the better.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one more comment. Yeah, I definitely understand the need for this. I do have some concern about eliminating one of those police officer positions, but I am going to vote to pass this out of committee.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goss?
When that transition's over that you just spoke of, will your IT needs be relieved a little bit? Will it be a little bit less, or would you say it's still?
As of right now, probably not. We're not seeing anything that's going to change the workload because it is so intensive on the IT needs. So, like I said, again, we're going from 60 hours a week to 40, so it'll be a very full job.
Go ahead.
One last question. No disrespect. If you didn't hire this person, would you hire an officer with those funds and then outsource? You said some people go to private outsourcing.
I have zero budget to outsource anything on top of my current budget.
So there's X amount of money for one or the other.
Yeah, that was the look to the officer's salary, which truly wasn't a police officer. It is on paper, but it's not in reality, versus an IT person who's well qualified for the position.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Chief, I think the solution is just have Bob come back and do the 60 hours. And just...
You know, I came short of threatening him not to leave, and it failed. So he changed his phone number after he left his office.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor by Curtis Johnson, a second by Doug Marmee. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? See none. All those in favor of moving this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Best wishes.
I certainly appreciate it. Thank you.